it's so lovely to see you. I'm so sorry that you had to push your wedding back. Yeah, no, I completely understand. Obviously, over the last few years, you're definitely not the only person who has had to push their wedding date back, but I'm so sorry that this has happened, and I am really glad that you are finally in a better place and you're able to now get that planning show back on the road, that you're able to be here today. So thank you so much for coming. Today we're just going to spend just a short amount of time going through your invitation samples. Now, I know that we were going to do this obviously much earlier after our last appointment, but then obviously things changed. I will go through all of our different sample options. Okay. Gosh, your folder is certainly getting quite fat now. Quite a bit to go on. Something else that I will show you that has come in. Your fabric samples. Yeah. So we'll be able to go through those at our next appointment if you're up for that. But I'll just set this aside for now. Okay, so these did come in quite a while ago, so they may not be to your current tastes. We will be going through in our next appointment anything that has changed about what you now want in your wedding. Obviously it has been quite a while, so if there is anything that you've changed your mind about, that is completely fine. But these are some of the samples that we have to go through all sorts of different things. Now, I know that you originally weren't going to send save the dates, but now that the wedding has been pushed back, I would recommend considering them again. So you could send them in maybe the next 1 to 3 months, and then you would be sending them 9 to 12 months prior to the actual date, and then you would follow with the formal invitations, maybe 3 to 4, but no more than 6 months in advance of the actual wedding, okay? And so with the save the dates, now that you do have a little bit more time, the advantage to sending save the dates is also that you said that you had a couple of guests who will be travelling from interstate or overseas for your wedding. Is that still the case? Yeah. And so the save the dates will just help those people that do have a little bit more preparation that they'll need to undertake to attend. It'll give them that little bit of extra time to sort out things like their flights. So in this bundle here, it is from our preferred invitation supplier. We do have other options though, but in my experience, they are high quality, they use the best materials, they are produced locally, and they are very consistent. They're not as cheap as going through someone like Vistaprint, but the quality is just a little bit better, and it takes out some of the hassle of doing it completely yourself. So I know that you did want to go through this process and look at some samples from an actual invitation business. Just open this up. So there are some save the dates in here, but we're going to be looking at a couple things in all of these samples, okay? So just because something is an invitation or a save the date, if there is something that you like or dislike about it, just ignore whether it is a save the date or an invitation. So pay attention to things like the font, the colour, the paper, the alignment on the page, any details, so embossing or printing. If you do see any that are absolutely perfect or really close to what you're looking for, let me know as well. So with all of these things as well, and this is another advantage of going through this particular business, So they do custom make their stencils, basically their printing presses. And so if you do like, for example, a particular font, a particular foil, etc., what we can actually do is we can get a save the date made, we can get an invitation made, we can get your name cards, menus, things like that. We can get them all made to be very consistent so that they can look not necessarily exactly the same, of course, but you can have all of those elements be really consistent throughout basically any of the possible stationery products that you would like. We do also have a couple of these wax seals that I'll be showing you as well. These can be a really nice touch. They're not for everyone, and these are fake seals. So I'll be showing you these in a little bit more detail later, okay? Okay, so this is our first save the date. It is quite diminutive. You can see it has some rose gold foiling on it. In the direct sun, of course, it is actually a little bit difficult to read, which is a limitation of all foil options, is that the angle at which you can view them is a little bit limited. I'm going to give you all of these to have a bit of a feel as well. So we have quite a few different paper options. So this is our thickest cardstock, but for example we have this as well. If we just compare them, you can see that there is quite a difference between them. So this one is a lot more yellow, there is a little bit more texture in it as well. As we do go through with things like the paper, the foiling, the details, the font, things like that, try not to make a snap judgment about each of these imitations. If there is something that you really don't like about it, but you like the rest of the elements, we can very easily swap things around or do a fully custom imitation for you. So say for example that you really liked the cardstock in this one, but you like everything else about this one, we can absolutely do this on this type of cardstock. So I'll give these to you to have a feel. Then there are also options like this. This is a thinner cardstock, and this is also what's called a partial foil. So with this one we can see that there is this foil border here, but the rest of the invitation is printed in ink. Mr. David and Miss Lisa Smith, together with Mr. Mark and Mrs. Helen Thompson, request the honour of your presence to celebrate the marriage of their children, George and Monique. So I'll give this one to you as well. How are you feeling about the foil so far? Yeah. So with something like this one as well, what you can do with this one is it does have that border that is printed there and the save the date heading. But what you can do underneath that is you can print whatever you would like in here, but you can also handwrite the details. It can give it that personalised touch. So how are you feeling about this one? It is one of our more polarising designs. Yep, absolutely. So again, this is one of our more polarizing ones. It is much more modern with its font choices. The block font here, but this type of font here, it really does look like handwriting, which is quite trendy, but definitely not for everyone. So I will go ahead and put this one as a definite no, and I'll just make a note of that. So with the foiling as well, something to explore is the level of detail and how extravagant you want to go. So there are so many options. This is one of the more extravagant invitations that we have. Everything that I am showing you today is a single page invitation. So it is a standalone product. So everything is just the one page, the one item. You can get invitations that come with their own custom envelopes, or you can get styles that fold out. And so it comes all folded up and it is itself an envelope. And then what you do is you unfold it and then you have basically a 3-page booklet. Or you can even have ones that fold upwards as well as out to the side. These invitations, when they come in that pack style thing, they're usually for when you want to provide a little bit more detail. So you can provide more detailed information about how to RSVP. You can provide your menu and any dietary requirements. You can provide a RSVP card, a separate RSVP card. And so that's something where the invitee will, they'll RSVP, so they might check a box that says yes, or they may write down the number of how many people, if there are multiple people named on that invitation, how many people are coming. They might be able to tick if they have a dietary need, things like that. But I know that we did discuss you having a wedding website and you'll be including the URL. So that level of detail probably won't be of interest to you, which is why all of these are a single page. So again, this is one of our more extravagant invitations. You can see the detail, absolutely exquisite, in this foil right here. So it is very, very extravagant, very grand, very eye-catching. You think it might be a bit too much for your wedding? Okay. Completely understandable, but I will give them credit where credit is due for the remarkable work that they've done. Okay, so we do have a few other partial foil options. I'm assuming, just have a feel of that, I'm assuming that this as well would be possibly a little bit too grand. You can see there is this embossing here. Again, very eye-catching, quite grand. You can even see it when you look from the back. You can see the detail in it. Also not for you? Absolutely fine. Here we have another very similar to the one we saw before, partial foil option. How are we feeling not just about the font but about the colour as well? So this is a yellow gold foil, but in terms of the printed writing here, this is a pure black. So if we contrast that with this one that we looked at earlier, we can see this one here is pure black and this one here was a navy blue. I think with your wedding colours, navy blue would be a little bit more consistent with your theme, but of course you don't have to have your invitations match exactly. Have a look at that, and then side by side with that. Yeah, okay. I completely agree. I will say as well that, again, font can make such a difference. these two both use pure black, but you can see that where the writing is a little bit finer, it is more delicate, thin font here. We can see that it doesn't look nearly as heavy, and it looks less black. So the black is less overwhelming in this one. You quite like that one? Okay. Is there anything else that you particularly like, or anything that you don't like about it? Okay. Yeah, definitely. So I think with that printed black font, you are absolutely right. The delicacy makes it look very classic, very elegant, very sophisticated, but too much delicacy can definitely have its drawbacks. So being able to actually read the names here is quite a bit of a challenge. But you do like the flowers, okay. I'll make a note of that. You're liking all the ones with the flowers, okay. Oh, okay. So you've actually gone ahead and designed some. Oh. So back before you'd even really started planning, okay, yeah. Do you mind if I have, do you have it here? Yeah, can I have? Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is an invitation that you designed just as an idea. Okay, I can definitely actually see how this is quite similar to some of the others that we were just looking at with that floral detailing. A similar calligraphy font here, but with some classic block letters as well. This is obviously printed on just regular paper, so. And that colour of that paper as well, I can see that that's actually got a faint blush to it, so contrasting it with pure white here, you can really see that it is subtle, but it is there. So is that something that you're interested in? Yeah, absolutely. So with the colours of the cardstock available, not every single one is available in every single colour, but we do have some coloured options that we can go through as well. So here are some more full foil imitations. I know that we did say that the full foil was a little bit difficult to read, but on a darker cardstock it is of course much easier. There's more contrast. So these colours are too bold, yeah, absolutely. But just have a look at those. What we do have here, it's a card of all the different colours that the thinner cardstocks are available in, and also this one here. So we can go through some of the available colours, but what I might do is give this to you. It is double-sided as well. There are a couple of options. This isn't an exhaustive list, it is just a list of the 40 most popular colours of cardstock. But it does have colours from almost every colour family. So we can see that there are quite a few neutrals here, golds, some pinks, peaches, corals and reds. Moving into some purples, maroons and mauves. Then on the back we have some purples, blues, greens and teals. And then here we have more neutral colours in the grey, navy and black families. So have a look at this as we do move through, if there are any that you really like the look of, but you maybe would like it in a slightly different colour. I think the next couple you'll actually really like. So let me just get some of those ready. Here is an example of one of those pinks. Now, personally, I wouldn't recommend this grey on this pink. Again, can be just a little bit difficult to read, particularly when you're not looking at it straight on with that much reflection. If this is on your fridge, for example, and you're trying to have a look, you are going to really struggle if you are viewing it from the side. And this is the first one that we've looked at that has no foiling. So all of the ones that we're about to look at have no foiling at all. They are going to be much, much cheaper. Particularly for your save the dates, you might want to consider going with a no foil option. No embossing, no real detail, just the ink on paper. It can still look classic and elegant. But if you do decide to send a save the date as well as a formal invitation, it might be better to save some of that money so that you can make your formal invitation a little bit grander if you do want. And this is a really good example of a save the date that has no foil, but it actually looks a little bit like it does because of the color choice here. So because it is a dusty pink, it looks very clean, it looks very elegant, and of course it doesn't have the same shine or shimmer as the foil. But it's not a completely dissimilar look. So, these next three I think you will really, really like. So, this one and this one here. They are both some very similar floral options, and I do see a lot of similarities between these and that one that you've made that mock-up of, that you designed yourself. So have a look at these again. If there are particular elements that you don't like the positioning of the names, the font, the colour, anything like that, we could, for example, have this floral element up the top on a completely different cardstock, different colour, font, anything like that. So try not to make too holistic a judgment about the invitation. Oh, you think it looks perfect? Okay, wow. Even with the black writing there? Awesome, okay. So liking the more mauve colour of this one. It does actually look very, very harmonious with the mauve and dusty pink colours in the flowers here. Yep, absolutely. So I'll just make a note about this one. So have a look at those. This one does also have a slightly textured cardstock. So there are very, very subtle dimpling details in here. If we compare it to, for example, this card here, you can see there's just a tiny, tiny little bit of detail. Now this one you may also like. It also has the floral element to it, but in the form of a border. How do we feel about this? Yep, I believe with these, I will need to double check, sorry, but I believe with these the flower colour can't be changed. I know that they do have similar to this, so they do have other floral border invitations in other colours, but I don't think that you can pick custom colours for each flower. You would need to select from. Okay. So it does create a little bit of a contrast, the elegance and the rounded shapes of the writing here, with the right angles and angularity and squareness of the border here. which can be very eye-catching, but I also understand that it can look a little bit harsh, especially with the black of the font. So now these next three, they are quite different to the others that we've seen so far. And based on what you've said, I don't think that you're going to be a big fan of these. So first we have this save the date here. You hate it? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. It is a very modern option. Some people do really like the modern elements here. I also completely understand why you do not. Then we have these two here. They also have embossing. We have a coloured cardstock here as well. Yeah, you can't really see it actually. It says, she said yes. She said yes. It is quite difficult to read, and with this one in particular, it does look, especially when viewing from afar, like the invitation is mostly blank for an unknown reason. So, can you tell that I personally am not a fan, but I don't want to influence your decision. You hate it too? Okay. And then lastly we did have this one as well, which is quite similar. Does save the date here. Okay, so you want the florals? Okay. I'll make a note of that, and what I will do is I will package these back up for you. I will write down the details and the item number of all of the ones that you liked. At our next appointment, I will put together a little proposal, so how much the different variations may cost. And what you can actually do is when you have the item numbers, you can jump on their website and you can do a mock-up of any of these invitations, put in whatever customizations are available. So for example, if you did want a particular colour of foil, or if you wanted a different colour font or a different font, you will be able to make some of those customizations. So then you populate in your details. So you would put in your name and your future spouse's name. You would put in the date for your wedding and the venue. And then it will give you a digital preview of what your own invitation would look like. If you want to then order samples of those, you can do that. You'll be able to also choose the cardstock. So if you did want to see what it looked like, for example, in a couple of the different options, then you can definitely do that. They do allow up to 5 custom samples to be requested for free, so that's really good. But if you do need more, reach out, and in my experience they are really accommodating. Okay, so have a think on whether or not you would like to do save the dates as well as the invitations. The last thing that I'm going to show you are these wax seals. So as I said before, they are fake wax seals. We have 3 different options here. So we have a yellow, almost an olive gold. We have a warmer gold, slightly smaller. And then we have a red, very traditional wax seal. So these are all stick-on wax seals. So what you do is you put your invitation or save the date in an envelope or whatever it is that you are using to post them. And then you simply peel off the back here. and then stick it on. You definitely could do a real wax seal. I would advise being a little bit selective in the wax that you choose, and that's because when you're using an envelope, especially just a regular envelope that you would buy from the post office or Kmart or something of that nature, it's quite a thin paper, and wax is oil based. It is an oil, and it can leave a bit of an oily residue in the paper. Unfortunately, I have heard of it sinking through and actually colour staining just a little bit the invitation that's inside the envelope. So these are a really good option for that. They are also, of course, much more convenient in that you don't need to pour the wax and stamp it every single time. But I do also know that some people appreciate the authenticity. So in terms of the designs, there are a few different options again. This one says "with love," and then we have these two. So you do have options for writing or not. How are we feeling about the wax seals? Okay, you're not sure? Well, I'll give these to you. If you want to experiment by sticking them on something, you are more than welcome to. Let me know how it goes. Have a think about it. The good thing about those is that you really don't need to make the decision too early. So the lead time on getting some of these printed, depending on how customized your final product is, it can be several weeks. But with the wax seals, they are just a ready-made product. So before they've actually shipped your invitations, but after they have made them, you can order them and they'll be able to post them with your invitations. So take all of these home. I've made notes about some of them, and I'll be in touch with some of that further information that we discussed. Do you think about those save the dates? Think about the formal invitation, and think about if you will be sending a save the date, the information that you would like to put on the save the date versus the invitation itself. So save the dates are usually very, very simple. That's part of the benefit of them, is that people can be alerted to the date that your wedding will be held on and the venue. Or sometimes if you don't know the venue yet, even just the location. And thankfully the chateau is able to accommodate your new date, so you haven't lost any deposits. I know that that can be so stressful, but I'm glad to hear that they were able to accommodate your new date. You do, of course, then know your exact venue. So with the save the date, it would typically just be you and your future spouse's name, the date, of course, and the venue. Usually you would put something to the effect of formal invitation to follow. Then on the formal invitation, you'll have further details. With RSVPing, of course, it can depend on where your guests are located, any cultural customs that you might have, the formality of your wedding, and the age of your guests as well. So I know that we did talk a little bit about that wedding website, and they are truly phenomenal because they can be a central hub for everything that your guests may need to know. So they can RSVP on that website. They can let you know of any dietary requirements or preferences. You can let them know about accommodation options, especially because I know that we did talk about reserving a floor or maybe both floors of the chateau and their accommodation for your guests, so that they will get that 10 to 15% discount. You can put local attractions and things like that on the wedding website even, so if you do have some of those guests travelling from interstate or overseas, just some local knowledge as well, so restaurants that they might like to eat at if they will be spending more than just the one day there, which of course I imagine most of them will. And you can also link to your registry. So I know that we talked about different registry options in our first appointment, and if you haven't given that too much more thought, that's completely understandable. But I would recommend definitely having your registry finalised by the time you send the formal invitations, okay? So we can go through that in a little bit more detail in one of our future appointments. Now that the wedding is next year, of course, we've got a full year to plan all of that. You can start thinking about the registry now, because even though you may think that there's nothing that you really do need, it can also be a really good chance to maybe upgrade any really old or kind of crappy things that you've got. So even though you've been living out of your parents' home, you've been living independently for, however many years, if you've just got really, really cheap bedding that is almost in tatters, it might be nice to splurge on a nice set of sheets, something like that. So do have a think about that, and we can go through some of those options at one of our future appointments. If you are interested in setting up a registry, I'll take you through all of the steps and the different options and how to actually set that up. We'll get that all set up for you, and then for you it'll just be a matter of window shopping, basically, picking out what you might like. I'm just reading my notes. I know that we were also going to do samples for your guest book. We can do your name cards and menus, and those samples, once you've settled on a design, we can then visit some of those things that will be needed for the actual wedding itself, rather than something like the invitation, which again we would want to send 3 or 4 months in advance. Again, particularly to accommodate those interstate and overseas guests, we do want to give them quite a bit of warning. Okay, I'm just having a look, making sure there's nothing else that we need to follow up on right now. Oh yes, of course. And at our next appointment as well, we will be able to have a look at some different chair options. So I know that originally you didn't like the chairs at the chateau. I can go through some options for what we can do to either style the chairs to make them look more to your tastes, or options that we have for bringing in external chairs. And we'll be able to do that at the same time as exploring the layout and floor plan. So your guest seating plan, but also things like how you will be moving through the venue from the ceremony to the cocktail hour to the reception. So you don't need to know exactly where you are seating your guests just yet or anything like that. But in terms of planning how the day will run, we can definitely start working on that now, and hopefully that should also ease some of your nerves as well, because this is one of the biggest days of your life. Okay, amazing. All right, well, it was lovely to see you again. And yeah, take care.